everyone. This is Sonia with Real Talk Radio here with you. And for those of you who've been following my story Time Tracks, I had published on February 25th here on Facebook another installment of the story, but I had not yet made a narrated video for it. So here I am finally making the video. Yay. And we are in Chapter 1, When Destiny Calls, and we left off with Sophia leaving Daniel at the picnic table, and she has now found herself in completely foreign surroundings. So here we go with the story. Sophia saw a sign for an unfamiliar trail, and her heart skipped a beat. She had to have somehow wandered into a part of the park she didn't know about. She was trying hard to rationalize away what was happening. But as the trail curved slightly to the left, she nearly fainted. There was no way to rationalize the sight in front of her now. Shaking her head in disbelief and starting to tremble, Sophia stood wide-eyed and glued to the spot. There in front of her, impossibly in front of her, was a glacial valley leading up to the base of a massive mountain. Sophia stared transfixed, watching as several large and billowy white clouds eased their way through the ethereal blue mist surrounding the mountain. Sophia's shaking got worse because she knew there were no mountains in Asbury Park. She also realized that the weather had drastically changed. There was a high and hot sun, and she now needed to shed the unwanted anorak jacket. Sophia took in a deep, shaky breath, noting the distinct scent of wildflowers filling the air. She shook her head in disbelief. Somehow, impossibly, the season had clearly changed to summer. With a surge of panic, she began pacing frantically back and forth. Daniel ending their engagement seemed a trifle to her compared to what she was facing now. She looked at her wristwatch and gasped out loud. It had stopped telling the time altogether. In an ever-growing panic, she remembered her wish back at the picnic table with Daniel that time would stop. But no, that just wasn't possible. Losing control now, Sophia yelled out at the mountain in desperation. It no longer looked majestic and beautiful to her. It now looked imposing and uncaring. But she yelled anyway. God, please help me. Sophia had not often prayed in her life, but she reasoned that if there were ever a time to pray, it was now. As soon as she said the prayer out loud, she felt inexplicably calmer, and she now noticed a big white rock that she had not seen before on the side of the trail. Suddenly feeling quite weak, her knees buckled, and it was as though the rock was beckoning her to sit. She sat down on the rock slowly, groaning at the aching in her feet and wondering just how long she had actually been walking. Hot, tired, and very thirsty, she lowered her head into her hands, fighting back tears. She was scared. But instead of crying or giving way to the fear she felt, she surprised herself by praying once more. God, if you can hear me, please help me. The moment seemed to tick by like an eternity as she sat there helpless on the rock, looking at the ground and nearly giving up, when suddenly and mercifully she heard a voice. She looked up to see a man standing in front of her who looked to be in his 50s, and her eyes filled with grateful tears at the sight of him. He looked back at her with kind gray eyes. He had darkly tanned, weathered skin as though he had spent a lot of time out in the sun. His brown hair was streaked with gray, and he wore a funny blue cap that made her think of a train conductor. In fact, he did look like a train conductor. He had on a pair of grease-streaked overalls with the initials TC embroidered in white on the front pocket. Sophia was so relieved to see another human being that she could not help but smile at him. He smiled a big, broad smile back at her right away, and she began to feel more at ease. In fact, Sophia immediately thought him endearing in a rugged sort of way. She was the first to speak. "Oh, thank God, sir. I'm so relieved to see you. I seem to be lost." Here her voice trailed off as she was at a loss to explain how she had gotten there or her predicament. She tried to continue. I know it must seem terribly strange, but one minute I was in Asbury Park and then, once again she found herself at a loss for words. Seeing her struggle, the man spoke, and Sophia found his voice to be soft-spoken and as kind as his eyes. "Oh yes, miss, I would rightly say you are quite a long ways from Asbury Park. In fact, it looks like you have entered a time portal." Sophia's heart did a flip-flop in her chest. Oh, this kind man must be crazy. Her normally light green eyes turned a darker emerald green as she felt panic rise up within her. Maybe she had not heard him correctly. Fighting an overwhelming impulse to run, she willed herself to speak to him again. "I beg your pardon, sir. I'm truly having the strangest day. Did you say I have entered a time portal?" Okay, guys. Well, that's a cliffhanger. That is the end of this installment. I want to thank you as always for tuning in with me. I hope you enjoyed it. And I also hope to be back again very soon with a new installment of Time Tracks for you. Until then, bless you all. This is Sonia with Real Talk Radio, signing off for now.